Florida Forever has been one of the nation's most successful land buying and conservation programs. Now it may be only Florida sometimes, or maybe Florida never. P2000, the state's first conservation land buying program, began in earnest with an unlikely champion, Republican Governor Bob Martinez. The move garnered the unusual support of the Audubon Society in Martinez's failed 1990 re-election. His successor, Lawton Chiles, pushed hard for the plan's continuation, and he signed the bill at Wakulla Springs in 1991.
This is treasure, you know, and a lot of people never get to see something this good in their life.
The plan earmarked $30 million in dock stamps from home sales to bond $300 million in land purchases. Environmental activist David Gluckman saw much need at the time.
We have coastal properties that need to be bought. We have inland properties. We have properties that are necessary to protect manatees and panthers.
And a young Eric Draper from the Nature Conservancy called it an absolute necessity.
People want to save some of natural Florida before the best land is gone. Development is taking away the most precious and beautiful areas of the state.
Even Republican Jeb Bush became a huge fan of the program, but tight times have taken their toll. 2010 brought a huge coalition together to try and save the program, to no avail.
I understand the importance of protecting Florida, of making sure that not only for us, but for future generations.
This year, Rick Scott raised concerns over the funding scheme, and he vetoed a plan to sell less desirable property to protect more important lands. Next on Facing Florida, poking the environmentalists in the eye. Joining me now, Eric Draper, the Executive Director of Audubon, Florida. Eric, thank you so much for being here.
It's good to be here, Mike.
Second year in a row, the legislature says big goose egg to land buying in Florida. You were quoted as saying the people of Florida will regret this.
They will regret it, because as Florida starts growing again, that land that we thought that we were going to be able to preserve, there's more than 1 million acres on the Florida Forever list, is going to get developed instead of purchased and preserved. And I think that's a real shame.
Now, there was not a lot of money, depending on how you figure it out. The state was only going to buy land if they could sell some that they already own. The governor vetoed even that idea, though.
The governor did veto the Florida Forever provision in the budget. It was a very odd thing, because it didn't actually save anybody any money by having him veto that. What was in there would just simply said that if the state sold extra buildings or surplus land that was non-conservation land, the money would go to buy other conservation lands, and the governor vetoed that. We can't understand why.
All right, so to the folks that are maybe looking for a job, or the educators who are saying, well, why should we be buying land at a time when we can hardly put bread on the table?
You know, that is a dumb argument, Mike, because it's a very short-sighted view. Florida is going to grow again. We're a special place with lots of special places, and we need to make sure that we have parks for the future. We can't just have economic growth, we need to have environmental protection. And if you think about it, they go hand in hand. When people move here, they look around, they say, am I going to have a place to take my kids? Are there going to be trees? Is there going to be clean water? And that's what Florida Forever is about.
All right, so that, coupled with the dismantling of the Department of Community Affairs and the growth management of the state, what do you see as the vision?
Well, it's tragic what came out of the legislature, and unfortunately the legislature gave Governor Scott a lot of what he wanted. The water management districts are seriously cut back. 1/3 of the money that goes into the agency that does Everglades restoration is now going away. That's the South Florida Water Management District. I don't know how we're going to be able to restore the Everglades without that money. Same thing for the rest of the state. So we have lost our ability to manage growth, we've lost our ability to protect water resources, and we've lost our ability to protect the places that make Florida special. I don't know where we're going now.
Now, so would you agree that this was done at a time when the economy allowed it to be done, because it could be used as the growth manager could be the scapegoat for slow growth, when indeed they've been trying for a decade to do this?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The rules that allowed Florida to grow out of control for 20 years are the rules, you know, they're not that tough. Those are the same rules that they just got rid of. So I think that what we'll see is much more unplanned growth. You know, the funny thing, Mike, is we've got hundreds of thousands of acres of already approved home sites throughout the state of Florida. And so what happens to those home sites that are already approved when they start going and planting these new golf course communities? We've got vacant houses all over the state of Florida. You know, it's not our growth management rules that are preventing us from growing. It's other poor economic planning in the state.
I heard Commissioner Adam Putnam talk about the idea that maybe the state should start selling some lands off that are marginally for conservation, where they maybe bought a 5,000 acre parcel, but it's only really 2,000 they care about saving. The other 3 came with the deal, and then using that money to buy more land. Your thoughts on that plan and just the whole idea of knowing what the state owns?
We're open to using Florida Forever to swap some lands that have already been preserved, but maybe they're not the most important conservation lands for other lands that are actually more important. That's a way to get in holdings and add to some of the state parks. We need to be careful about that because we want to make sure that that decision isn't being made by some shopping center developer that says, I'd like to have that state park. Or it was a recent case of a golf course developer that said that he wanted to put a golf course in Jonathan Dickinson State Park. We need to make sure that we really don't want those lands for conservation purposes before we allow them to be traded or surplused.
Hey, give me a sense, Eric, why does the state need to consider even purchasing another 1 million acres of land? Why is that important?
The land that's on the Florida Forever list includes some of our most beautiful springs, some coastal habitat, including beaches, places that people really want to go, rivers and wetlands that will help to recharge our water supply and make sure that we've got plenty of clean water for our growth in the future. So it's a scientifically determined program, and those 1 million acres all have willing sellers behind them. These are beautiful pieces of land that we would probably all shed a tear over if we didn't get a chance to protect them.
Now, is anybody really clamoring to buy this land to develop it?
Yes, there are international investment funds that are coming into the state of Florida and looking at these pieces of properties and saying, yeah, we want to buy them and invest our money in them. Remember, there's a lot of money in the world right now, and it's looking for places to invest, and Florida is still a good investment. If we don't get ahead of those land speculators, we're going to end up paying much more money for the land in the future.
And is there still a mechanism in place to keep this land from being developed, as you say, prime beachfront or spring land?
Well, it's made it much easier for developers to develop the land because of the way that the growth management laws have just gotten changed. So we've undermined our ability to protect land through growth management. Of course, we've undermined our ability to protect our water through state law. And now we're undermining our ability to buy the land to protect it.
Let me get your take on just one more thing. Governor and Cabinet approved the dredging of 46 acres of seagrasses in the Gulf of Mexico off Pasco County. I've never seen that done in all the years I've watched the Governor and Cabinet.
This is a sea change for Florida to have the governor and cabinet approve that kind of dredging of seagrass. We spoke against it. A lot of other people did. It makes no sense at all. It's actually going to harm the local fishing economy there because those seagrasses are where the nurseries are for young fish. So anybody who cares about fishing, anybody who cares about our coast should be very worried about the decision by the governor and cabinet.
Sum up what you think this administration is all about when it comes to the environment.
I don't think Governor Scott has actually woken up and noticed that Florida is a beautiful place that's worth protecting. I think he says the environment every once in a while, but he has not done anything or shown any indication of his willingness to protect our land and water for the future.
All right, Eric Draper, Executive Director of Audubon Florida, thank you for being here. Everyone else, stay with us. We'll be right back.